This is Telling Our Stories Part 2, Character Voice and Dynamic Dialogue Exercises. In this section, we'll go over the definition of character voice writing exercises, what dynamic dialogue is, and dynamic dialogue writing exercises.
Character voice. A character's speech helps illustrate the character's personality. A pitfall for young playwrights is that all characters in the play often sound the same, very often like the playwright. Some common aspects of character dialogue that contribute to character voice include the following: the length of speeches, length of sentences, characteristic fillers, such as, vocabulary level, word size, types of sentences, meaning statements, questions, exclamations, inclusion of humor, irony, sarcasm, sentence structure or syntax, sentence integrity, are they whole or fragmentary sentences, patterns, repetition, concrete or figurative language. Does the character use idioms, similes, or metaphors? Use of facts or opinions, word choice, use of slang, how emotional states affect the verbal communication. The best way to learn more about what makes someone's speech sound natural and unique is to research. Researching the way other writers you admire create voice is a nice start, but researching the written word should not be done in isolation. It is important to continue observing the living world around you in order to make sure your characters will ring true. Go to a public place, observe, bring a notebook, write down what you hear, your impression of the word choices. Are the people speaking loud, diminutive, funny? Do they have any repeated patterns, or do they use slang? Keeping a regular journal of research specifically focused on conversation is an invaluable source for generating new content. Researching is only a part of the puzzle, though. It's one thing to have a working knowledge of how people speak, but making the right choices for your character can be daunting. It is often difficult to make consistent and effective choices about a character's speech if you don't have a clear sense of the character and their purpose. In order to have clarity of who your character is and what your character wants, you need to make some decisions. One of the first places to start is a quick character analysis questionnaire. Actors use these frequently to flesh out the unwritten aspects of who the character is. The following example is a great way to start deciding the life behind the character. What's your character's name? What's your character's age? What is your character's social position? Describe your character's physical appearance. Where does your character live? What does your character look like? Name one thing that would make your character angry. Describe a typical day for your character. Describe a dream your character has had. Pretend your character has a secret. What is it? Why is it a secret? What is your character's goal? Obviously, all of these relate back to a character in terms of how an actor understands what they're doing, but sometimes this depth of understanding is overlooked by early playwrights. If you're thinking in terms of who your character is, what their surroundings are, and what they want, you can't go wrong with how they speak. Answering these questions helps to solidify some aspects of the character's backstory. The next step is to create a brief backstory or bio for your character. This doesn't need to be very long, but having pre-existing information about where this person came from and what life experiences shape the way they see the world will make it easier to understand what choices they may make within the plot. We all wear different masks with different people. Michael Shurtleff's Auditions provides actors with 12 guideposts that help an actor create specific choices about a character in a timely fashion. Writers can also get a great deal out of looking at some of Shurtleff's guideposts. Armed with a brief backstory and key questions about who the character is, the next element to consider is how the characters engage with other characters and how they deal with specific situations. The suggested exercise is to answer the guidepost questions as the character. Relationship. How do I interact with others? Am I direct, nervous, flippant? Does it change depending on the person I'm speaking to? How? Conflict. What am I fighting for? What is my dream and how can I make it come true? If there is no conflict, why don't you run? The moment before. What was happening seconds before the scene started? In this case, you may not know exactly what was happening seconds before the scene started, as the world is not written yet, but this starts to establish that point of normalcy. Where is the character at the top of the play? Humor. What do I think is funny? How do I use humor in general? Communication and competition. Who am I competing with, and how do I communicate with them to get what I want? Importance. What specific things will happen if I don't get what I want? Place. What is my relationship with the location? Am I comfortable? Is it formal? Is it public? Is it private? Can people hear me? Do I want people to hear me? And mystery and secret. Do I have a secret that no one knows? What do I keep hidden? There is another exploration you can consider in metaphorical character choices. Even after establishing details about the character, it can be difficult to maintain a cohesive voice that embodies all the concepts established by your research. Sometimes the tone or approach of the character is enhanced by focusing on a metaphorical understanding of the character. Selecting a character metaphor often helps unify other choices or aspects of the character so that everything works together in a cohesive manner. These are some common character metaphors that you might consider asking when developing a character. What would this character be if they were a fruit, a vegetable, candy, junk food, car, color, musical instrument, song, fast food chain, video game, TV show, city, magazine, brand of clothing, soft drink? All of this research will help you define a character for a story that is in the early planning stages, but sometimes you simply need to practice creating characters. The following exercises are great ways for generating characters and character voice from scratch. Opening lines. This is an exercise that allows the playwright to attempt to create a clear relationship without using any names or labels like mom, grandpa, teacher, etc. The playwright chooses one of the following lines to be the first line in the scene. These are the lines that are suggested. They're at it again. Listen to them. Come here a minute. I want to show you something. You shouldn't have done that. He didn't mean it. When will I see you again? It's not fair. Did you hear that? I don't understand what you mean. Can we talk about this? Those lines are jumping off points in the middle of action. If you know something about who your character is or make specific choices about who the characters are, these lines will help develop a full monologue. This is a free writing exercise, and it's not necessarily intended for the developing of a specific script, but it's a great way to get into the habit of just naturally writing, particularly if you have students who are not used to doing this. Sharing these stories with other students is a great way to get comfortable with that presenting your work and getting feedback process as well. Characters from photos. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but only the person that puts it on paper decides which words they are. Writing from photos is a great exercise or a journaling practice that allows a playwright to explore research of imagination based on visual prompts. After selecting an intriguing picture, the playwright determines some quick facts about the photo and takes time to answer the guideposts, those 8 or inspired questions about the character, and then the playwright describes their personality, occupation, immediate goals, and decides how this person speaks. All of this pre-writing is based on the photo prior to the established conflict. Once complete, the playwright writes a monologue from the point of view of that character. The character can be speaking to another character or directly to the audience, and you can look for opportunities to show the mastery of the character voice in this exercise. The photos can be pulled from anywhere. We have included on the community site a series of photos that you are welcome to look through. So now it's your turn. Let's build a character. On the communities page in the theater, there is a discussion. If you will click on the discussion, I would love it if you could actually build a character from one of these photos. You could answer the questions that are provided. You could include the photo next to it, and we'd love to start a dialogue between anybody who has watched this video just to discuss what this process was like, how you think it might work in your classroom, or better yet, if you have something that works in your classroom as an early writing exercise, please share that in the community as well. Dynamic dialogue. We have focused on how dramatic plot and dramatic characters are used as key elements to craft a play. The third element, dramatic dialogue, is also necessary to create engaging pacing and believable scenes. We're going to take a look at how character research established in character development can be used in conjunction with the mechanics of the plot to establish truly active dialogue. To do this, we will look at the common tools of an actor that they use to interpret text. But first, having an understanding of the evolution of these actor practices. Stanislavski's system, beats and objectives, and we're also going to look at dialogue pitfalls. Scripts are not passive. They have late points of attack and focus on conflict, which results in a transformative event or series of events that leave characters changed, permanently changed. In ancient Greece, the experience of the play was so focused on the upsetting nature of witnessing the characters negotiate the conflict that the tragedies were said to create a catharsis of pity and fear in the audience. While not all plays are tragedies, the use of conflict to justify action and leaving a character changed is a fundamental part of all story structure. Even in lighthearted comedies, the scenes exist in a logical order based on the conflict and needs of the character. It stands to reason that the dialogue should also be based in the world of the play and in that conflict. In order to keep the dialogue engaging for the audience, it is important to keep the characters focused on the immediate conflict. If the words characters are speaking do not drive the plot and work toward accomplishing a character's immediate goal, they should be reconsidered. The playwright is writing for the actors to speak the language on stage. One way to keep dialogue effective is to consider the process of the actor. Having an understanding of how and why actors interpret lines on stage will streamline the dialogue in a productive manner. To understand the nature of a contemporary text interpretation, it's useful to understand the goals and tools of theatrical realism. Even if the play is not in the style of realism, these underlying principles are often found in successful theatrical texts. As we are aware from studying acting, Konstantin Stanislavski was an actor and director that struggled with inconsistency of performance on stage. He found that one performance would be engaging for the audience, and the next night the same choices could be made, but the performance would fall flat. He developed a system that would aim at creating real life on stage every time. The key principles of his system can be boiled down to the following: the creation of an inner mood, a conscious means to the subconscious, observation of reality, given circumstances, objectives, through line, the magic if, and emotional memory, moment-to-moment acting, illusion of the first time, and working within the ensemble. To that end, he developed a script interpretation tool that focuses on achieving the conscious access to the subconscious. It can be broken down into the following points: super objective, the character's overall goal; obstacles, things that stand in the way of the character achieving the objective; an individual objective, a specific desire of a character within a scene. This desire drives the character to speak and interact with others. It can be looked at as the characters want to, and then an action verb. Tactic, the way in which an objective is pursued. Characters can use multiple tactics to achieve the same objective. They want to do something active by something ing, a gerund. So a good example is running a race. To running a race, what is the super objective? To win the race. If a log falls in the middle of the path, the log is considered an obstacle. The new immediate objective is to simply get past the log, but there are a variety of tactics the character could use to get past the log. They could get past the log by jumping over it, by digging under it, by running around it, sawing through it, eating it, and so on. If the actor would use this approach to understand the way a character would say a line, it follows that the playwright could enhance the process if the words and choices also fit this goal-oriented thought process. The use of this super objective beats, objectives, and tactics is so fundamental to the contemporary actor's use of the text that it has been reconstructed and reinvented for decades. In 1984, Robert Cohen wrote a book called Acting One, which provides an acronym that helps focus actors' choices in how lines are interpreted for the purpose of having conflict-driven choices on the stage. The playwright can also use this process as well. This shorthand approach can be useful to the playwright. He uses the term GOTE, G-O-T-E. The actor or playwright should ask the following questions at any moment on the stage. What is the character's G, goal; O, obstacle; T, tactic; and E, expectation of outcome after the tactic is employed? When engaging in the imaginative research of what a character would say in a given situation, it is critical that the playwright understand the answers to these questions. In scenes with dynamic dialogue, there is a high level of importance for all characters in achieving their objectives. Characters must have a sense of urgency in order to achieve their goals. If it isn't important to the character, it's certainly not going to matter to the audience. If the dialogue is feeling stale, the playwright can raise the stakes of the characters in the scene by going back and looking at the use of the language to reflect the character's immediate objectives and tactics. Answering the questions for GOAT. If the playwright starts developing dialogue from the onset with the focus of character objectives and tactics, they will likely avoid common playwriting pitfalls related to conflict. These pitfalls are the following. Number one, no conflict. There are no obstacles for the character's wants. The obstacles they are presented with are easily overcome. The problems are minor, and the resulting conflict lacks consequence. This is a play or scene that is dead in the water. Number two, the conflict is resolved too quickly. The change the characters present is not believable because it occurs too soon or too easily. The conflict is not sufficiently challenging for the characters. Number 3, conflict does not progress. The central conflict or dramatic action does not affect change in the scene. Change happens independent of the main conflict of the play. The following are some extended playwriting explorations that could be used in the classroom to build under the trick before you get to that point where you're actually writing a full play. The breakup scene. Write a short scene where characters are breaking up with one another in a public space. The objective of the original character is to end the relationship, but it's complicated by the obstacle of the other character's desire to stay together. Use the physical environment to create additional tension and conflict. Share the dialogues and discuss how different tactics were used in different scenes. Post them in some sort of forum. Comment on 2 other posts. Identify the super objective obstacles, tactics that are being used by the playwright. Comments should be made on the effectiveness of the dialogue choices. This works as a digital exercise, but it also works face-to-face, and it's great to see how the same single prompt will result in multiple, very different scenarios. I've got a secret. Write a 2-person dialogue where one character has an objective they do not want to disclose to the other character. The character with the secret objective should still pursue it actively within the context of the scene.
This is Telling Our Stories Part 2. Character voice and dynamic dialogue exercises. For additional questions, please contact the Fine Arts team. Jessica Booth, Paul McLean, Casey Hall.